Good evening, everyone. We are continuing on with our series on the book of Ruth, and we are covering chapter 2 today. We ended yesterday discussing that the time when they came back, the time where Naomi and Ruth was at a time of the barley harvest, and it is in the time of Aviv, or the time of Nisan, which is actually the first month of the year. And this gives us a picture because the rest of the chapters are revolving around this particular piece of information. It is at a time where there is harvest, and there is a lot of harvest. Unlike when Elimelech had to bring the family away, but we don't know how severe at that point in time, and we're not told if there were anybody else who had left. And given what we read in chapter 1, it didn't seem that anyone would have left. And when they came back, they were surprised to find Naomi. And so now we continue on in chapter 2. And if we start chapter 2, it says, there was a relative of Naomi's husband. Remember, Naomi's husband is Elimelech from Judah, a Jew. And he is told that he is a man of great wealth. I think we need to break this down a little bit of the family of Elimelech. So Elimelech is important, and his name was Boaz, right? Boaz is the name, and so let's break this down. The English is not doing very well here in verse 1. So let me just try to break this down for us. The word a relative. Now, in our English word, relative just means somebody who is, an uncle, or perhaps a cousin. So that would be probably how it conjures in our minds. Now, in the Hebrew, it actually means modah. And the word modah, it's a very interesting word. Let me just put it down, modah. And it comes from the word yada. And if you know the word yada, it's to know. It's to know. So it is somebody that they know very well, right? Somebody they know very well. Of course, relative is not a wrong translation, but the picture that's given to us in the Hebrew is that this man, Boaz, right? Boaz is somebody who is also well known to everybody else, that is a close relationship, right, in the family of Elimelech. And we are told that this man, Boaz, who is a modah, he seems to be one who is mighty. Now, the word great is mighty. And the next word here is power. And this will give us a connotation of ability, of wealth, also of virtue, of valor. So that's this word here, chayil. Chayil means it's very strong, and the idea of strength in Hebrew really gives us a connotation that is quite broad, and you could see this, right, of ability, of wealth, of virtue, of valor, and it comes from the family of Elimelech. Now, I think what would be useful for us to understand is that this is easier understood as clan. Um, in the Oriental aspect, for example, in China, you would think of a clan like the Hakka clan or the Hokkien clan, where although in China the clan is connected by language, they are all somehow related to each other. And a clan or a tribe of people or a kindred of people is what is being expressed here. And Boaz is well known. He's not just a relative, but he's a well known relative, well known in the relationship of Elimelech, which also tells us that Elimelech comes from a powerful background, except that when he left, nothing was carried with him. Verse 2. So Ruth the Moabitess, now we continue to see this description. The Moabitess is a woman of Moab. This is the label that the Bible is using to describe Ruth because she is not an Israelite. That is the emphasis here. And so she said to Naomi, see, please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain in whose sight that I may find favor. Now, the how should you say? Uh, the implication, right? The word him is not there. By implication, it appears that since they were talking about Boaz, the translator infer that this after would be about Boaz, so that he could find grace. And the phrase, I'm sure we all are familiar, grace in his eyes. One of the things that I have tried to explain to us in the past is that just like good and evil, right? Tov and Ra, you find that favor, chen, that's the word chen in Hebrew, is also in the eyes of the beholder. And so Ruth comes from that background, even though she's a Moabitess. That seems to be a very oriental expression, not just Israelite, but a very oriental expression that they all understand that when somebody is happy with you, then a lot of things can be done. And so she is saying, let me go to the field. And then the word glean is actually a very important word. This word glean. Let me explain this a little bit. The idea of gleaning really comes from Leviticus. Just come here, Leviticus chapter 19. This is actually part of the Torah, and you will be able to start looking at verse 9 onwards to verse 10. There are two verses here, but these two verses are powerful verses, and it gives us a picture of this concept called gleaning or lakat. The idea of gleaning is about gathering the leftovers, right? Leftovers. Now let me just briefly explain what leftovers actually mean. If you are aware, when somebody harvests a field, no matter whether it's barley or wheat, they will always drop things on the ground, right? And God specifically says in Leviticus chapter 19 and in verse 9 and 10. Let me just briefly read this for you. It says here, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, the ones that's dropped on the floor, the leftovers that we are saying. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the ger, the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Now, the idea of the instruction to the Israelites not to clean up the harvest is so that the poor and the stranger who doesn't have land, they don't own land, they work for people, and they need to live. And as God has blessed the harvest is to be shared also with the poor and needy, but in a way where it is, how we should say, it's very dignified. The idea is, it is not about giving a handout. It is about these people would come after the harvest, in which part of the field they have finished harvesting, they'll pick up the balance. And as they pick up the balance, that is like working. You're actually working for your food. And that will give them a sense of dignity, that it is not a handout. And God made this law to protect the, well, in a very oriental sense, right? The face. That they are not considered the outcasts or the useless people. They can still work for themselves and to fend for themselves based on this law to glean, right? To glean the grain. Now, the heads of grain means, well, that's where the grain is, correct? And if you notice, you have the stalk, right? And at the head of it, you find the grain. And so that's what they are trying to cut, right? They're trying to cut this so that they can actually then go back and do something with the grain so that they can eat. And so this is the principle of gleaning. And so Boaz says, well, if he is in the family of Elimelech and he has power and he's got wealth, he's got land, why don't I go to the field, the open field? And this is now the reverse. She was in the open field of Moab. Now she's now in the open field of Judah. And so with this, Naomi said to her, "Go, my daughter." Then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Verse 3 is quite interesting. The actual word is she walked and she came and she gleaned. Right? This is good. So the picture is she walked away and she arrived in the field and she started to pick up things from the harvest in the field after the reapers. Now, the idea of the reapers are the people of the harvest. After the reapers, the people of the harvest. Okay, that's the reapers. But the significant word is after. Remember, we said after is literally walking behind, which means that the people of the harvest would have harvested in front, and whatever they left, they drop, and the corners of the field, they are not supposed to harvest, so that there is something for people like Ruth, who can go and pick up for themselves. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now, there is a very peculiar uh, phrase that is not translated here. This is what it says: happen to come, literally means uh, it was by chance. By chance, she actually came accidentally, which means that she wasn't sure. She didn't know where the fields of Boaz was. Uh, I guess when you go to the harvest, you see that the fields is just huge. And there would be a few people who would own different parcels of land, but it's just the harvest. And when she went there, she happened. Happen means by chance, accidentally. And these are two words. She came by chance to the plot of the field that belongs to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. And that's the beginning of the background of the narration for this chapter. And so she knows who is Boaz. She has gotten the blessing of Naomi. She didn't know where the field was. She happened to be there at the right plot of land by accident, by sheer accident. How she picked it, we are not told. That's why the description is by chance and accidentally came to the plot of that field. Now in verse 4, it says, "Now behold, look, Boaz came from Bethlehem," which tells us that the fields are not in Bethlehem. The fields are outside of Bethlehem. And he said to the reapers, remember the reapers are people who harvest. People who harvest, that's the work. We are only told of the work, the type of work, which is the adjective that's describing the actions, right? We are not told exactly who these people are. And so he came and he greeted them. He says, "The Lord be with you." And so this is Jehovah. Jehovah be with you. The word "be with you" literally gives us a picture of a wish, a well wish, that God is amongst them, right? Present with them, together with them. And these are very, very good exchanges of blessings. We would know this word with from the word Immanuel. So Immanuel is with you, but in the singular. And in this case, it would be Iman Kam, which would be to all of you, to you all. Right? So that we know that this is not singular. So the Lord be with you all. And they answered, as if there is a way of exchange in a greeting, right? And he says, "The Lord bless you." And the word "bless you" here is a singular, right? Masculine singular. and that would be to Boaz. So Jehovah, uh, Yavareka, and that Yavareka is bless you. And so the Lord bless you. So the Lord be with you, the Lord bless you. And these are very interesting greetings. Um, I guess in the Middle Eastern, there are such greetings. You see the word Assalamu alaikum, and then Walaikum salam. And that Arabic expression is the understanding that no, you wish the other person peace, or salam is shalom. And so may shalom be with you. But in this case, it is more specific because these are religious, I would say, religious Jews in Judah, and they are specifically making direct reference to their God. Jehovah be with you. And then the reply would be, Jehovah bless you. And you would see that Boaz is a religious person. He is one who knows God, and by exchanging these greetings gives us an insight that Boaz is not only rich and powerful, he is also kind, and he's also what you call it, he has chesed, right? Kindness, merciful. And that's the picture we're getting from verse 4 of Boaz. He comes and he cares about how the harvest is going. So he is a very detailed person, you could say, and he looks after his people. Then Boaz said to his servant, who was in charge of the reapers. Now, we want to say that it's a servant, but the word here, a much better word for servant is a young man, right? This is a na'ar. Maybe a servant may not be quite accurate, but I think if we understand that this is a male servant, a young male servant, a na'ar, and he was the one who was in charge. Yes, that's correct. He's the head of the ones who are harvesting. And so the question is, who is this young woman? And this would be Na'ara, young woman, all right? And you would find that the young man is actually Na'ar. So now you can see a pair. Na'ar is male, Na'ara is female, right? Feminine. And so obviously Boaz is asking his servant, who is a young man, who the young woman is. And I guess the assumption is if he knows what's happening in the reaping field, then he would know who the identity of this young woman is. So verse 6. So the servant, I would say the young man, who was in charge of the reapers, he answered. He said, "It is the young Moabite woman." Now again, this is the young Moabite Na'ara, which means that is a young girl, right? Not just young woman, right? Young, well, I guess at this point in time, Ruth is maybe in her 20s, her late 20s. So this young woman, let's leave it at that, who came back. The idea of coming back is the idea of shuv, who shuv with Naomi from the fields of Moab. And she said, and she had asked permission from the young man Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. And so she came and has continued from morning until now. Now, the idea of now appears to be quite a while. Now, we aren't sure exactly how long. We don't think that it's at the night yet, but it's quite a long day for a young girl to do that. Early in the morning, and this appears to be where the light is up, right? We don't know how early, but it's very early. That's in the Bocher. Until now, and she had rested. She sat down a little bit, right? She sat down a little bit in the house. Now remember, she will only rest where Naomi can rest. So she actually follows the rules for a woman who is unmarried. And so she came to the house uh, and she had rested. The idea of little in this case uh, is a short while, right? A short while. So let's look at verse 8. Now that Boaz knows who that Naarah is, the young woman, so Boaz came to speak to Ruth. You need to follow the narrative because there is a narrative of a relationship in development. Okay? So it says, uh, you will listen, my daughter, will you not? And the idea of listen is to hear, right? To hear. Uh, and the idea of hear is you will hear, my daughter, will you not? Or will you not hear? That's the question. And so whenever you see a man calling another person as my son or my daughter, the word daughter is but, right? But you would know this word from the word Bathsheba or Bathsheba in the story of David. And the front part of Bathsheba is Bath, which means daughter or daughter of. And so in this case, Boaz spoke to Ruth and called her daughter, which tells us one thing about listening. They are always told to honor your father and mother. And the idea of filial piety in the Oriental sense, well, even in China and even in amongst our culture, is very prevalent. And so Boaz is seen as a more elderly man who is in a position to give advice. And that would be the picture of listen. Listen means you listen to what I have to say. And normally you don't say that if you are of the same age or even slightly older. And so Boaz is seen or understood, since we don't know exactly how old he is, but he would be old enough to call Ruth his daughter. And so that picture is what you need to keep in mind. He says, do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. If you look at the Hebrew, he says, do not walk to other places to glean, right? In the open field of other people, meaning another, not Boaz field, right? That's the picture, what it means by another. Nor go from this. The idea here is do not pass over. That's the word. Do not pass over the field. That is what he's saying. And then he says, stay close by. This word is the same word that Ruth said to Naomi, to cling, to cleave, right? And the man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his woman or his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And that's this word here. Stay close by. My young women, and young women would be women of her age, because these are the plural, this is the plural word of Na'ara, which was used to describe Ruth. Now, verse 9, we come to verse 9. It says, let your eyes be on the field which they reap. Now, understand this, that the reaping activity is actually done by the women. Because we weren't told earlier what kind of person is doing the harvesting. We are just told that there are harvesters. But here we are told that they are young women that belongs to Boaz. And so verse 9 says, let your eyes, and literally eyes to see, to be on the field where they are harvesting, and you shall walk behind them. Right? Behind them. And who are them? The young women. And then it says, have I not commanded the young men? Now we also are told that there are young men around, and these are the Na'ar, right? Na'ar, young men, or Na'arim for the plural, but let's use the word Na'ar. So Na'ar and Na'ara are the ones who have been harvesting. So they are women and men. And when it came to the men, he had given the command. Now this word is sava. This is really a very formal demand. A formal demand from the boss to the young men not to touch you. Now the idea here, touch, comes from the word naga, which is to touch, to strike, okay, to reach. And so it gives us a picture that the young man is not to disturb Ruth, right? It's not to disturb Ruth. And when you are thirsty, the idea of thirsty is when she thirsts, right? When she thirsts, when she needs water to drink. She says, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn. And this is quite interesting because the young men are the ones who draw water. Now the idea of draw water means there is a well around and the men are drawing the water, and she is to go to drink from the men's water. Now comes the reaction. Now the reaction is important because this is what Boaz said to Ruth, and Ruth doesn't know Boaz at this point in time. And suddenly, out of the blue, Boaz asked about her and also went to speak to her. And there must be something that Boaz have seen in her. And so now we come to the conversation that is in response to what Boaz has done. And so she fell on her face. The word fall is literally fall down, right? Fall down. Or the word prostrate, right? Prostrate. On her face. Now, We normally don't translate this as worship him, but basically it is to bend down with face towards the ground. Now we have the second word here. It says bow down to the ground. Now the word bow down to the ground is our most familiar word, shaka, right? Shaka. And that is the word that is commonly translated as worship. And so what we have here, we have an A and a B. They both say the same thing. She actually goes down to the ground, face on the ground, paying homage to Boaz. And the idea here is you only do that to the people who are of greater authority, of greater power, of greater respect. And so she respected Boaz. That you can now tell from verse 10. And she said to him, face on the ground still. He says, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Now let's break this down. Why have I, Ruth, found favor, chen, grace, in your eyes? Remember, grace is always in the eyes of the beholder. If the eyes of the beholder sees grace in a person, then he would extend favor to that person. We read of this for the first time in Genesis chapter 6. And Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And here again, you will see over and over again throughout the Hebrew scripture that grace is about being seen in the eyes of the beholder. And who is the beholder? That is Boaz. It's Boaz's eyes, and there is grace. And so she says, I have found favor. Why? What about favor that she's saying? Not about just anything in general. She's saying that in verse 10 that you should take notice of me. The idea of take notice of me comes from one word, that you recognize me, all right? You acknowledge me, that you regarded me, what else? That you respect me. All of this means this. You should take notice of me. It's one Hebrew word. And she is taken aback of the attention that Boaz gave to Ruth. And so she calls that favor, right? Chen, favor. And then it says that, but I am a foreigner. Now the word foreigner here comes from the word nochri. Nochri means someone who is an alien, right? An alien from a foreign land. So a foreigner, so to speak, right? And she knows that she's from Moab. That's what she's saying. I'm a foreigner in Israel, right? I have no ties here. And thereby, although Ruth has embraced the God of Naomi and the people of Naomi, she is not an Israelite. She just happened to join the nation of Israel and embrace that to be placed under whatever Naomi is placed under the rule of God in the land of God that God has given to Israel. But yet she recognizes the fact that she is still a foreigner. Now we come to verse 11 and 12. 11 tells us, now Boaz answered and said to Ruth. So we need to know the conversation, right? Boaz answered and told and spoke to Ruth. He says this: it has been fully reported to me, which means that Boaz knows everything. That is what the statement in Hebrew means, right? I know everything, and all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. So the whole history, notice it is what you have done. What you have done. And what did she do? She did not abandon. And then she joined Naomi to return to Israel, to be one of the people and to be placed under the authority of the God of Israel. That is what he is saying. What you have done, not about just coming home with Naomi. I think if we just look at this and think that that Ruth just came home with Naomi, we would have lost the weight of the text. And so this is known by Boaz, and that you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. Now, understand this. There is some peculiarity here. First of all, you have left. You have left means you have forsaken, left behind your father and your mother. This really gives us a picture that a man shall leave his father and mother, right? And the land of your birth. And when we talk about the land, that would be the land where she was, which is Moab. Of your birth means she was born there. She is an offspring. That, well, I guess you can call it her clan, right? Is really there. And then she have come means she has walked. And this is an action. It's an active verb that she has walked from Moab to Judah. And then it says, to a people whom you did not know. You have no knowledge. Now, no knowledge doesn't mean no knowledge of the Israelites. Obviously, she has knowledge of the Israelites, right? Machlon is an Israelite. Naomi is an Israelite. So Ruth actually knows an Israelite. And so what does this phrase actually mean? Is that she had no experience and she was never placed under the authority of the Israelites, right? The Israelites. And the Israelites is under the authority of Jehovah God and his commandments in the land. And the word before is a very interesting word. In time past. In time past means before this, she was never one of them. She has never committed herself to say, your God is my God, your people is my people. Where you stay overnight, I will stay overnight, and be under all the restrictions that has been placed upon an Israelite woman. And Ruth is saying, I will be exactly that with Naomi. And so this is an expression of a knowledge of what Ruth has done, and the weight of it is what they appreciate and understand extremely well, which tells us this, that the Israelites are very grateful and very thankful and very respectful of anyone who is a foreigner who makes that decision to join them, that they are not really obliged to, and to make that decision to be placed under the authority of God in the land of Israel is a fantastic thing in their mind, at least in the mind of Boaz. And so verse 12 says, the Lord repay your work, right? Repay your work. What work? What you have done, right? What you have done. What have you done? You have joined Naomi to be part of her people under the God of Israel. And then it says here, the word repay. I think we should know this word. It's shalem. This gives us a concept of repayment. You know, when you are in debt with somebody and the creditor comes and claims from you, and so you need to repay your debt until full. And so that is what it means to repay until full. And so that's shalem. And when it becomes full, you have shalom. And that's the concept of shalem becoming shalom. The next phrase says this, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel. Now, a full reward means the shalem, and the word wage, right? Wage means the reward or the wages for what she has done is to be given by God. So it's actually a blessing, right? It's actually a blessing. And it says be given you doesn't really appear in the Hebrew. And so the idea here, a full reward, be, and the word be is exist, happen, and so English uses the word given, right? So the idea here is that you will have a shalom wage. Whatever God's blessing to you will be shalom to you by Jehovah, and this would be Elohei Israel, the God of Israel, which is the God of Boaz. Right, so this is a pronouncement of what we call a pronouncement of blessing. Now you can see that this is an A and this is a B. It is about shalom, that God will completely give you full reward. And so for whatever you have done, what have you done? You have what? Under whose wings you have come for refuge. What does that mean? What does that mean? And this is crucial. Look at the words. The work that Ruth has done is to join Naomi. And to join Naomi, there is a full blessing that is pronounced upon Ruth. But what is the implication of what Ruth has done? And so the word here is have come, right? Have come, meaning she has left Moab and have come to Israel. That's number one. Number two, for what? For refuge, for protection. For refuge, for protection, to have a sanctuary. That is the implication here. Joining Naomi is to come to Israel for the protection of Israel. and the protection that she has come under. Now, the idea here of under, it is the under part, right? Under part. And then it says of the wings, of the wings. And this would give us a picture of the wings of God, right? Wings of God to protect them. Now, this is a picture which Boaz have. And so let me just briefly describe this and then we will come to an end. If you recall in Exodus chapter 20, God says that he is a jealous God, and the word kana is used. That God is a kana God. He is a jealous God. So he tells his people, do not have any gods to my face, not any images that is reflection of things in the skies, in the land and the sea underneath and the land below. So no form and shape can represent God. And so God says he's a kana God. And so the word jealous or kana gives us a picture of a mother bird, right? Like an eagle, right? In a nest where the eagle, mother eagle would spread her wings and protect the chicks very passionately and very zealously, so that she would feed, provide, and protect her loved ones. And so this is a picture of under whose wings, that is God's wings, that you have come. That is Israel. You are now part of the people that God's wings are protecting. And you're here for a sanctuary. And this should give us a clearer picture from chapter 1 that the following Naomi in her footsteps is not merely a literal walk behind her, but literally taking on the profile of a person who enters and joins the nation as one of them, yet not an Israelite. She is still a foreigner, but now the Israelites are obliged to protect her because she is one of them now. Now, understand this. Being an Israelite is not like a change of citizenship. Whenever you do a migration and you say, I'm going to migrate to Australia, and you get an Australia citizenship. Now, in the biblical terms, we need to put aside all our concepts of citizenship. In Israel, to be a part of Israel is to be placed into the land, number one, which God has given to Israel. Number two, you will behave as one of them, that you will also be placed under the authority of God, whose laws that you come under. But yet you are not one of them because you don't belong to any of the 12 tribes of Israel. But because for the fact that you have joined them, they are considered people of refuge, that Boaz is obligated to protect as God will protect Israel. And that is the full weight of the meaning of the work right here that you have done. That she has joined the mother-in-law to Israel, not just as a guest, but as part of Israel. And that is what it means to join Israel in its full sense of the word. And we come to the end and we will take a break in verse 12 and we will carry on Monday.